Hello and welcome back. My name's Annie and this is my creative detour. Today I'm working on the Catalyst and Curiosities series by Meg at Megjournals, and it's prompt number 2 and it's for noticing the details. So noticing the little details in your work. Now for me, one of the things that I am drawn to constantly is repetition. It doesn't really matter for me what the repetition is, but repetition of line or repetition of pattern or color or shape or form, any of the design elements and principles, it doesn't really matter what it is, but if it's repetition, then I notice that I'm drawn to it. And I notice that I especially love repetition in pattern. So a repeating pattern, a simple pattern that creates an overall pattern. So for example, I love this pattern from some paper from Graphic 45. Now, the pattern itself is very, very simple, but it's just repeated over and over, and it gives the general look of what the piece is. So today I'm going to be doing a collage. I've already started quite a bit of it, and it is of a bird in Australia. You can see the birdscaping your garden, and it's the singing honeyeater bird. What I'll do is I'll bring in some of the things that I've already started, and then I'll flash back to some of the watercolouring and things like that. So let's get some things set up. That was the book that I got the image out of. So you can see that this book here I've cut some things out of. It's got some lovely little illustrations of Australian birds in it. And I have taken the singing honeyeater out of it and I've watercolored it. So let's have a little look at what I've done. Okay, so I have our singing honeyeater here and I have color rendered it. I watercolored it first, but I then wanted to seal it. So I then put some tissue paper over it just to pull it back a bit. And I put some of these Faber-Castell Pitt pen markers on the top of it. And I have then fussy cut it out. So I'm going to, you can see I've got my pages out and I'm going to put this down. And then with pattern paper that I like, all different pattern papers, what I did was you can see I've got a template here. I traced the leaves here with a template. You can see I've got a piece of card and I've made 2 templates. And then I've traced around those and cut out a whole lot of leaves out of patterned paper that I like, or like I like the line work on here, the repetitive line. And I'm going to collage that, but then I'm going to trace around these and create some negative space as well in the artwork, and then watercolor the background so that the render is in the negative space, not in the positive space. But that will be way down the track. Initially, I want to just get this built, but I'll put in a little bit of a flashback video right now to when I was watercoloring this bird, and then I'll meet you back here in a little bit. It won't be the whole watercoloring time lapse. It'll be a very shortened section of it. So I'll see you back here soon. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that watercoloring. You can see that it has changed quite a bit. I have put, even since that watercolor, I have put on some tissue paper onto the top of it, and just to seal that, because I used the wrong medium to set the sketch in the beginning, and the watercolor wasn't really setting on it. So I had to seal it and pull it back a bit, and then I've put some pit pens on. But nevertheless, it is what it is, and I'm happy with where we're heading. That's what, art's all about, isn't it? So it's about learning from doing things and evolving and creating and moving on and getting to something that you're happy with at the end. So I'm going to just lay out some of these leaves that I've cut out and figure out where I want to position them. And then I'm going to glue some of them down, and then I'll start drawing in some leaves and watercoloring the negative space. Prompts for the challenge: noticing the details, and then the elements are mark making, negative space, and hand lettering. And the color palette is probably more of a warmer, pinky hue. I'm fine with the color palette that I'm working with, and it's not as pink as what's in the prompts, but we might pull a little bit of a warmer pink into some of the background. We'll see how we go. Let's do some gluing, and then we'll see where we get to. Okay, I've glued the main hero down and a few of the other bits of pattern paper. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue down some of the others, and then I'm going to trace around some of these patterns to put in some other leaves that I can watercolor around for negative space. So the thing that I'm enjoying here is using a repetitive shape, templates of our 2 leaves. So I'm using 2 repetitive shapes, but I'm creating completely different negative space patterns, but the paper itself has a repetitive pattern on them. I quite like that. Okay, let's put this one down. Now, the plant that the singing honeyeater is on is called a bat's wing coral tree. So I have all of my cutout leaves down. Now, I'm going to use my templates, and I'm going to draw around them and put some leaf shapes in to watercolor up to. I want to do the leaves in negative space, so I'm going to draw around them and create shapes to watercolor up to, and I'll fade the watercolor into some of the background. So let's do that. I'll cover this with some of my interesting shaped leaves. Okay, I now have the base done. You can see here I've outlined quite a lot of the leaves, and I'm going to watercolor in this, and then the same on this side, and create some negative space. I'm going to set up for that. See you soon. Okay, I've finished watercolouring. I am really happy with how it's turning out. I love the negative space, like the leaves. I'm going to just let it sit for a bit and dry. It's still wet. And I'm going to just pop back. I'll look at it. I'm going to do some mark making on it, come and do some line work, and I'll walk past my desk and then I might get some inspiration, or it might take hours, it might take days, I'm not sure. But initially, I'm just going to let it dry and then I'll come back and do a little bit of line work on it. So I will see you back here at the next stage. Okay then, so I've finished putting on some markings and you can see that I have gone around all of these leaves here that are in negative space. I've gone around them twice with a thicker marker and then a very thin one. And then the leaves that I have cut out with the patterned paper, I've just gone around the edge of them once, but then I've also done some other markings on them. So this one here's got some crosshatch on them. This one's got a little bit of stippling. So I've kind of mixed that up. This one here has some scratchy lines, some stippling on this one, and also some stippling on that one over there. So I also have pulled out the explanation about the bat's wing coral tree, which is the leaf and the tree that this is. And it's got a very unique shaped leaf. The younger leaves are one shape, and then as they get older, they sort of turn into this bat-winged shape leaf. I think that's how it works. And so I've got the explanation for that out of the book. I've also pulled out some pattern paper that I like. So going back to the prompt, that is noticing the details, I love repetitive patterns. And that was one of the reasons why I've repeated the shape of the leaf and I've repeated some of the cross-hatching or the stippling. But I've used this because I love the pattern of this. Now I'm going to put it on here and put the explanation of the bat's wing coral tree on it. For the handwritten component, I've written out Catalysts and Curiosities number 2, and that the prompt is noticing the details. I've put down the snippets and I've actually reflected on what things I've noticed about myself in relation to the snippet. And it says, I'm drawn to repetition in any form, which I touched on before, whether it's line, pattern, shape, color. I love repetition in artwork. I've popped down here the elements and their mark makings, negative space, and hand lettering. So I've done all of those. I've done quite a lot of mark making. I've done some nice negative space for these shaped leaves. Some are in the positive space, some are in the negative space. And then I've just popped down the color palette. Now my color palette is not exactly accurate to what the one on the prompts, but it's in the family and I'm okay with that. I've also pulled out a few little bits and pieces like field notes or some little tickets. So I'm going to do a little bit of collage and put it all together. I have pulled out a serviette that's got some leaves on it, and I'm going to put that on to this because I just want to pull that back a little bit. So let's pop those to the side for the moment and put a little bit of Mod Podge onto our page. I'm just going to actually pull out a little bit, tip a little bit onto it. Not sure whether some of you know, when you're using serviettes, if you draw around the shapes that you want with water, it will release very easily the shape that you want. If you just give it a little bit of a tear, it'll tear the place of least resistance, which is obviously the bit that is now wet, and tip a little bit of Mod Podge on again. That was It's probably a little bit too much, but that's okay. And I'm just going to push that down. Let's pop that to the side for the moment, and we'll work on this. So I'm not sure out of these little field note tickets and everything that I've got what I'm going to use, but I do know that I'm going to put this on here. That's my information about the prompt, just so that, you know, in a 2 or 3 years' time, when I look at my art journal, I'll actually know what it was about. I possibly should date it too, shouldn't I? Now, I'm thinking I'm going to put this on here. I'm not sure if I want it at the top, or I think I want it in the middle, to be honest. So it kind of reveals itself. Let's do that. Let's make a decision, Annie. And glue it down. I have absolutely loved doing this piece of art, doing the watercolour, especially the repetitive shape for the negative space. Oh, I love doing that. It's been quite a long time since I've had the opportunity to just take my time and do a piece of artwork that employs quite a lot of different techniques like watercoloring, and then I did some markers on top and then mark making. And I am so grateful to Meg for doing this challenge, because I wouldn't have done anything like this at the moment. I would have found other things to do, which is fine. There's always, nice projects to do, but I am thoroughly enjoying it. Just letting myself be creative, and however long it takes, that's okay. Like, I know that I'm running a little bit behind everyone else, and I'm okay with that. I've had a big week. I had surgery on the weekend, abdominal surgery, so I'm on day 4 of recovery, and I'm okay about taking my time. I have the explanation about what this bird is, and it's the singing honeyeater, and it says, a bird found across Australia except for eastern coastal areas. I'm having to film this. I'm sorry if there's lots of shadows, but today is day 4 after surgery, and it's the first day that I actually felt like coming to my desk. So I kind of think that I just need to do it when I feel like doing it at the moment. And if that means that there's a few extra shadows, then there's going to have to be a few extra shadows, because I need to do things when I feel like them at the moment. As the weeks progress, we'll go back to filming during the day. Okay, I'm happier with the colour of that. I just didn't want it to be super bright. When I was doing architectural illustration, I used to use quite a bit of negative space rendering and really enjoyed it, because you see completely different shapes than what you normally do. Yes, it was nice playing with that again, playing with negative space. Now we can put our words on. So let's start from the bottom, because the bottom one is the one that's going to dictate the spacing. Now, to be honest, I cannot remember seeing this bird in the wild. I'm not a bird watcher, so it's possible, but I live close to the coast. I live in Brisbane, And before we lived in Brisbane, we used to live in a coastal town. So it's probably not likely that I actually have seen this bird anywhere. But I wouldn't know if I did see it, to be honest. I wouldn't know what it was. Put a little bit of a cluster up in the corner. And this one says museum number. So I'm trying to make it just look a little bit like a field notes entry. I'm going to glue this on here. Actually, I might get my eyelet out and put an eyelet. Do I want an eyelet in it? Yes, an eyelet might be nice. Just for a bit of texture. Okay, that's looking good. Let's go to this side. And our explanation of our bat's wing coral tree is dried now. So I'm just going to cut back that serviette, glue it on the face. Not the right leaf, but it's okay. Doesn't all have to be perfect. And I just think I might put this here. I mean, it's not an almanac, but it has some field notes and some dates and some numbers and things on it. So I'm going to use a little bit of creative license and use this almanac sign. Yes, I like that. And there's all of our information about the project. We're getting close. Now, a date. Beautiful. Okay, let's tidy up a little bit. See if there's anything else that we'd like to put on this. I've scored my pages just so that they work nicely in my journal. And an eyelet, just because I can. Yes, I like that. And let's put one on this one as well. Okay, so here we go. Here's my finished piece of work. It is prompt number 2, and it's noticing the details of catalysts and curiosities. And what I did was I found a lovely bird that I liked, but I mainly looked for the shape of the foliage. And the reason was I wanted the foliage to be able to be switched from positive space into negative space. I've got leaves here that are positive space, and then taking that shape and rendering in the background to make it the positive space and the leaf into negative space. So I wanted a shape that was easy to repeat and to render. And so this is what I found. I found this bird, but I found the bat's wing coral tree. So the shape of the leaf was the main thing that I considered when putting this composition together, so that I could do that positive and negative space with watercolour fairly easily, but it also has that impact and it has the repetition. And you can see that I cut out some shapes of the leaf, and that's how I traced around it and created the shapes. I also cut out lots of patterns because in the prompt it says noticing the details, and I've noticed with myself and my cycle of creativity is that I love repetition. Repetition of form, shape, pattern, line, anything like that. It doesn't really matter, but I love repetition. So repeating the shape or the form over and over and over to create this bush-like or shrub-like background was perfect for me, and sort of sums up what I like. And you can see that I've repeated really lovely patterns. I've repeated little snippets of it uh, throughout. So this one's repeated up here, this one's repeated here, this one here is repeated down here, and so on and so on. This one here is repeated over here. Unfortunately, it's now covered up. So I've tried to repeat patterns as well, but within the patterns, the style of the patterns are repetitive. The line work, I've repeated line work, like hatching or cross hatching or stippling. So I love repetition. Okay, let's have a little look at where we're at. I've put the composition into my journal, my art journal, and I have done a few other things. I put a little ticket here just to repeat a ticket from over there. We did the eyelets earlier. I also have put some red dots on this page because I had no red carrying over. So a few of the red dots from here I carried over, and then I've done some white splatters as well. I'll bring it up for you to have a little look at it. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm loving the negative space. I really enjoyed putting repetition in to this piece of artwork because that's what I loved and I am drawn to, and I notice that the most. So if you like the composition and the journey that I went on to do noticing the details, especially for repetition, a thumbs up would be great, and think about subscribing to the channel to help it grow. Actually, if you'd like to, pop a comment below on something that you really enjoyed about this composition that I've done. That'd be lovely to hear some feedback. So thanks again for watching, and I will be doing prompt 3 very soon. I'd like to catch up as soon as possible, and I will see you all very soon for that video or in another one before that. So have a great week, everybody, and bye for now.